Hello and welcome to The Seventh Rule. I am your host, Ryan T. Husk. That is Jarrod Cooper, super producer. We have your stars, Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton here as always. And they're radical.
Hello, hello.
Today, we are going to talk about gatekeeping. It's going to be a really important show. You all know about it, gatekeeping. It's in a lot of fandoms, especially this one. We're also going to talk about Picard for a little bit, and we're going to talk about Discovery a little later on. So hang on, hold on, and
be strong.
We'll be right back with The Seventh Rule. Hello and welcome back to The Seventh Rule with your stars, Cirroc Lofton and Aron Eisenberg. My name is Ryan T. Husk. That there is Max Headroom.
That's me.
Oh, I like your beanie, Aron.
Yeah, put that down, please.
It's very Rastafarian.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about gatekeeping. We're going to talk about Discovery a little later on in the show. But first, a word from Cirroc Lofton.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Trinity Comics Convention Services. They attend over 30 comic conventions a year and have the biggest private signings with some of the biggest celebrities and comic creators in the world. They offer COAs and certifications through CGC and CBCS. Make sure to visit them online, www.trinitycomics.com.
Trinity-comics.com. Check it out. That's our good buddy there. Thanks.
Thanks for adding that dash for me, buddy.
Well, we can also put in the link below. You know, no problem there. We're always adding a link.
Well done, Cirroc. That was good. I'd say print that.
Print that. All right.
So,
Judy Brown.
Before we get to the gatekeeping, just quick bit of Picard news. That is supposed to be shooting in 1 week. April 14th is when they're supposed to start filming in Santa Clarita, California. That is April 14th on a Sunday.
Did you get a call, Cirroc? Are you working?
No, I don't come in until the 21st. So
and we still have a couple casting announcements that haven't been made yet. So we should be getting like 3 or 4 in the next week or two.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. We've only got 3 so far, and they've got like a main cast of like 7 or 8, like that.
I didn't get a phone call. I'm very disappointed.
Well, I'm expecting it, so it's coming soon. I just know that the 21st is when I'll be available for whatever scenes they need me to do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, Aron,
tell
us about gatekeeping.
Well, I was actually hoping you Jarrod.
Oh, yeah. Jarrod, what is the official term? What is the official definition of gatekeeping?
I don't think there's like a dictionary definition, but it's what it is bluntly is fans who feel for some reason entitled or empowered to belittle. I don't want to say belittle.
Hello.
But to make like certain qualifications that dictate what makes someone a fan of something versus what means they aren't.
In other words, when it's kind of like the no true Scotsman fallacy, you know, when they say like, oh, no real fan would like Enterprise, or if you know, or you wouldn't, if you like the JJ movies, then you're not a true fan, or Discovery's not real Star Trek, and anybody that likes it is not a real fan. That's basically,
it's like elitism is.
Yeah, it's basically saying, it's like othering, saying, you know, we hold the nugget. We're the ones that are able to say what is real Star Trek or what is a real fan, and it's not you.
Yeah, and to me it's a bit of form of bullying and controlling and making others feel less than because they like something that you deem is not worth liking, or it's less than because they don't have the experience of watching as much of something or being a part of something as much as you did. Therefore, they are less than you and not worthy of truly calling themselves a fan or being a part of something because they don't share as much of the world that you do, the world of what it is and what we're talking about, Star Trek. And what inspired me to talk about this, to be on this show today, and to ask you guys if you wanted to discuss it, was I actually saw a tweet where somebody said, and luckily I don't remember the name of the person, which is good, because I wouldn't say it if I did. But he basically said, if you are a fan of this show because you only saw the J.J. Abrams movies, then you are not truly a fan. And it bothered me because it's really not how we should be with each other and with people new coming into the show. If somebody just happened to watch one of his movies and go, wow, that was a lot of fun, I love this movie, and then watches the next one and then the next one and becomes a fan of Star Trek, they should be greeted with open arms and say, welcome to this amazing world. Now check out TNG, check out Voyager, check out Enterprise, and you've got to watch the original series. And it doesn't matter whether you are fans of those shows, because ultimately what I believe is we're all fans of the world of Star Trek. We may like one show more than the other, or we may be more critical of this one versus that one. But it's kind of like, people say, like, one of them was on DS9. Did I experience that? And I'm sure Cirroc has stories of experiencing that at cons too. And people would put down DS9, and I would say, you're not looking at it for what it's giving you, which is you have this wonderful jewel that is Star Trek. And in that jewel, there's different parts of it. There's different ways to look into it. There's different facets of that jewel. And all you're doing is looking at that one little spot going, oh, that's that diamond. That's that jewel. And you're not seeing the other side where the sun is now coming in and showing you the orange and these different colors and looking at it going, oh, but that's really beautiful. I didn't see that side of it. And that's what I would tell people in the early days of DS9. And I think we should discuss this a little bit, and maybe we have some ideas of how to move past it, or maybe there's just going to be those people,
Cirroc, what do you think?
I think that that this kind of conversation is indicative of a certain kind of energy that exists in the universe, an energy of parallels. And so just as you have the polarity of north and south, or magnetic poles, you have a parallel of tradition and people who are trying to write the future and make a new way. And you always have that pull against each other. And I think, you experience it with music, you experience it with art or with literature, and you can experience it in so many different ways. But I think what you have is people that are adhering to the tradition of it, the more long, linear, standing belief systems, and then the people that are trying to push the boundary and expand those belief systems. And you have that in politics with the left and the right, and you have that with with the way people have their own belief systems, whether it's religion or relationships. And so now as we go into a space in which we try to define or redefine relationships, sexual preferences, identity, and religious beliefs, we're going to enter into a sphere in where people will push the boundaries or challenge the past and the status quo of the past. And then you will have those people that want to hold on to the past and want to remind those people of the traditional cultural values that have stood the test of time for so many years. So I see it in that form, Aaron. I see it as in that kind of form of this kind of dichotomy between two energies of polarity. I think it's, I can't say which one is right or wrong, because that's how we have progress, by challenging the status quo. And yet you have also tradition and culture by having a history and a past. So they're both valuable in kind of society.
But okay, then I'm struggling to see the value of someone telling another person your opinion or your joy or your calling yourself a fan of X isn't of value because you haven't enjoyed it as much as I have, or you haven't seen all of that from the past, or you're not really a fan because you like this, and this is not Star Trek.
I wonder how much.
Hold on, Jarrod. Hold on, and then go. And then I'm almost done. I won't talk too long because that to me isn't bringing in two sides. It's not debating and talking about something. It's basically saying you're not worthy to be part of this world because what you like.
Well, first let me say that anytime an attack is personal, I don't condone it. So anybody attacking somebody personally or what their belief system is personally, I don't condone it. Those are put me downs and ways to try to disparage people. I don't agree with that. But there is a logical argument which could be had in which you can discuss ideologies and principles and start to come into an agreement on whether one idea is more preferred than another. Or, for example, what is the basis of the thought that behind that statement? So you're not such and such, you're not this kind of a person, you're not a true Star Trek fan unless you've seen all the other things. Mm-hmm. What is the sentiment behind that? The sentiment is, well, there's this entire bulk of information and you're picking out one piece of it and claiming to have an understanding of the whole when you do not, because you've only seen the J.J. Abrams version of it. And mm-hmm. So I think there is some valid merit to the underlying sentiment to what somebody is saying when they say you don't have a complete understanding of it. But
I agree that.
Putting people down for liking something, which is essentially what I think is one of the main focus of what you're saying. Putting somebody down for liking something, for saying, "Hey, look, I like Voyager," and people, for people attacking them for their likes and dislikes or for when they entered into the universe is not really a fair way to kind of introduce people or to invite people to get to know more about the universe, which is what you probably ultimately want them to know.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think there's a kinder way of doing it, and with the internet, which is why I don't engage in the internet as much as other people.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's one of the
only reason.
No, that's not the only reason. There's other reasons, but. Is that people take things out of context. Even a text message, for example,
sure.
can be taken out of context. I can text you something, and without the actual emphasis on the vowels and the sentences, it can read several different ways.
Correct. That's absolutely true.
Right.
Let's hear what
misunderstandings.
Let's hear what Jarrod was going to say.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I wonder if how much of this gatekeeping is people and their inability to deal with change.
Because, that's right.
Let's sit for a second, because if I became a fan of Star Trek and I watched the original series and I fell in love with it and that show was mine, that experience was mine, and now Next Generation comes out and you've got an entire different way of telling stories, and there are people that are enjoying it just as much. Mm-hmm. I'm not. So I'm going to sit here and say that the experience that you are having watching that show is not the same that it is that I had doing mine. And it almost has to come down to target markets. I mean, if you make a TV show that a certain percentage of people are loving every week, there's a certain percentage of people that are hating it every week too. Mm-hmm. So as a franchise, I think Star Trek has done good with Deep Space Nine, Discovery, because you're hitting all sorts of target demographics, which is great. And you've got sure, they can say whatever they want about the JJ movies, but the JJ movies have done a whole lot for fandom over the past couple of years. The people that was the first thing that they saw, and then they went back and saw Deep Space Nine, Next Gen, original series, whatever. We're getting the same thing with Discovery right now. There's a whole group of people that Discovery is their first Trek. Does that make their experience any less than what mine or Ryan's was back in the day? No. But I think
Cirroc is saying there's the yin and the yang, there's the dichotomy. Jarrod, we see you're back. You're also explaining the dichotomy of it and why. And Aron is saying, yeah, I see that dichotomy, but we should leave people alone to like what they want to like and not be dicks about it. And now I'm going to add to that and say that there's also another side of that, you know, and again, I mentioned this a lot of times. I run the biggest Discovery group in the world, so I see what's going on in the world of Discovery fans, and I see more gatekeeping from the Discovery fans outward. Like anybody that has any criticism about Discovery, you know, they say, oh, I didn't really like that scene, or oh, I don't really like that actor as much. The Discovery fans jump on them like jackals, saying, you're not a real fan then. You're not a true, if you don't like Discovery, you're not a true fan. And so what that shows is that, you know, obviously it's not just one-sided, but it's just some kind of human condition to where if this is what a person likes, they think that if somebody likes something else, then they're wrong. And the way of saying they're wrong is, well, you're not a true fan, or you're not, you know, you're not right, or you don't know what you're talking about. And, you know, and it goes in all fandoms. We see it in Star Wars, you know, Cirroc and I see it in sports all day long. I'm a big, you know, Warriors basketball fan. And the fans are always saying, you know, if you don't like this guy, you're not a real fan, or real fans think that their team is going to win every day. And we're like, you don't think your team's going to win every day. You hope, but you don't think, you know, anyway. So dumb things like that. And that's just, it seems like it's human nature, but so we're not going to change that. But what we can change so what? You know, you don't have to attack them. You don't have to hate them. You can talk about it, but like it's another form of othering. What they say is othering, you know, just saying.
So if you can articulate your position
and they're wrong. Yeah.
If you can articulate your position without putting somebody else down, I think then you can have a debate, you can have a discussion. That's right. But as soon as you become personal and you start to attack people for whatever their belief systems are, then you've entered into a different realm, and that's a realm of bullying that Aron is talking about. And I don't think that it's necessary to bully. I think we can have a kind of really intelligent, and that's the beauty of Star Trek, is that it's intelligent. So it is supposed to bring out the intelligence in us and allow us to be intelligent as we articulate our position on whatever it is we want to talk about.
Even as you and I argue and debate over Discovery, you know?
Exactly.
I still love you even when you're wrong. And
or when you perceive that I'm wrong.
Oh,
you see how perception works.
But the thing you guys never do is discredit each other, which is what gatekeeping is saying you don't qualify as somebody that has an opinion. You guys just say, hey, I disagree with it, but you never say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're from LA, or you don't know what you're talking about. You were only in X amount of episodes, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Qualify. That's a great word. That's what I was getting at. When you say your opinion isn't worth what you're saying, because I deem you as not somebody knowledgeable to give me an opinion on if this is good or not. That's what bugs me.
And that also makes the person assume that they are the authority. So
correct. There's an arrogance.
Assume incorrectly, yeah.
Right. So it makes people feel like, well, I'm the authority on what is Star Trek, or what is the Warriors basketball, or what is how it is. And I think that's the part that caters into the ego.
It's almost like
feeling they're the authority.
It's almost like people forget that this is a subjective medium. You know, that's what seems to get lost. It's not like the basic morality or ethics. It's difficult to have a different opinion on, I think it's okay to murder somebody if I'm angry. And I'm like, no, that's not okay to do.
I agree with the second opinion.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a more difficult conversation in the sense of debating between what we deem as moral and ethical and where those lines are drawn. In a medium like this, music, sports, soccer, I'm a soccer fan. You can play the game of soccer many different ways. You can play a more direct game. You can play a more creative game. You can move. There's different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean one is wrong over the other one. It's an idea of I prefer playing this way because that's what I like and that's what I want to do, X. Another thing I was thinking of, another good analogy in this argument is if I'm a Van Halen fan, for example, right? So I have
Oh,
all
come
their
on, Aaron.
from the first one to the last one. If Cirroc came in and said, "Oh, Van Halen 3 with Gary Cherone, that is Van Halen," and I said, "Well, have you heard the other ones?" Go, "No, that was my first one, and I love it." And then and what people seem to do in the sense of gatekeeping would then dequalify your opinion about the Van Halen 3 album. Instead of saying, "Wow, if you love that one, man, you got to check out the first one. His work there." And then there's the Sammy Hagar. And then it's saying, "I love that you love Van Halen. I want to share more with you. Check this out." That's what I can't believe people in our world aren't doing, or many are, right? Probably more are. But the ones that are, quote unquote, gatekeeping others in that situation, it disheartens me. It makes me really sad. And I want to pull all those others and go, "No, come here. You get love. Well, let's give you some love. I'm glad you're part of this world."
Come in.
Before we go to break, I want to ask you guys a question. One of the biggest things that's come up around gatekeeping is you see Not My Trek. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, Ryan, Cirroc, and Aaron, what is Star Trek to you?
Let's answer that after the break.
Okay.
That's a good one. And after the break, I also want to ask what you guys think is going to be the future of gatekeeping. Like if it's going to go away, if we're going to handle it differently, if it's going to continue to evolve, because it kind of seems pretty present lately. But we're going to take a quick break on the 7th rule, and we're going to be back so fast that you're barely going to have a chance to miss us, but you will. Welcome back to the 7th rule with your stars, Cirroc Lofton, Aron Eisenberg. You remember them as Jake and Nog from Deep Space Nine. We are also joined with super producer Jarrod Cooper. I'm Ryan T. Husk. We're really getting into it today. Jarrod, can you re-ask your question, please?
No, not a problem. Just that when it comes to gatekeeping, you see people say all the time, "Oh, that's not my Trek." And as Aaron is Rastafarian right now, you know,
Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss.
Dr. Seuss. Oh, you're a cat in a hat. Gotcha.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
what is Trek, Ryan, Cirroc, Aaron? What is Trek to you? To me, Trek is a universe that all these, stories take place in. It's not a format. It's not anything. So what is Star Trek to you all?
Who wants to start?
Well, I'll start. I mean, actually, I agree with you, Jarrod, and I'm sure I'm going to agree with Ryan and Cirroc too on their points of what Star Trek is. And I think Star Trek means a lot of different things. But I think you're absolutely right in what I was describing earlier as this jewel, this world that was created by Gene Roddenberry and then has taken on so many different forms and told so many different stories within this universe. Absolutely. I think one of the things that bothers me so much about gatekeeping is probably my perception of how I feel and see and have experienced Star Trek through the last 25 years and going to conventions and meeting the fans of the show, and how there's always, to me, this huge love of a universe that accepts all and works for a better world and almost like a higher purpose of a spiritual utopia where everyone is accepted, where everybody is given an opportunity to be who they are and to be accepted for that. And we all learn how to walk our path together, not in an adversarial sense. How can we all find ways to move forward in this world together? So that togetherness, I feel like I've felt for so long over the years by meeting so many different fans throughout the world and so many different people from so many different walks of life all come together for their love of this amazing world. So I guess in a personal sense, that's what Star Trek has become to me. So when I hear things like this, right, I go, what? I forget what, as Ryan said earlier, and we or you did, Jarrod, that we hold on to what we felt it was, and then when something changes, we lash out because it's it's either threatening our love. I mean, what's the psychology behind that? And then it's closing the door. And that's the opposite of what I felt Star Trek is and was and will be, to me.
Cirroc?
Yeah, I like to just to piggyback what you said, Aaron. I think the inclusivity of it is what makes it so special too. But the exploration, the space exploration, but together as kind of a unit, as a family, working together for achieving the objective of this kind of exploration and goodwill. And I think what you do is you take a lot of the human experience and take it into a different place outside of what we know here on this planet and transpose it outside. And you get to see those same bonds and meaningful relationships play out under different circumstance, which gives you a different perspective on the ones that we go through here on this planet. So I think it allows the viewer to explore their imagination. It gives them like a certain level of freedom to kind of disconnect and imagine the possibilities of a future in which we exist. And I think that's one of the powerful strengths of it. I also think that it allows, and I think one of the beautiful things that Gene Roddenberry created was this ability for it to tell these very meaningful stories that that are they're not usual. They're not usual. They challenge the norms. They really step outside of the boundaries of what of the times that they come out of, in which a lot of the things are cookie cutter in our industry. And you see a cop show, and you see the same kinds of dramas play out. But I think Star Trek took a lot of risks in telling different stories, which is a credit to how brilliant Gene Roddenberry was and what he was trying to do, and having this vehicle to step outside and talk about race, talk about sexuality, talk about families, and also talk about a future in which that was so fragile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, definitely. Now, for me, when I first started watching Star Trek as a teenager, I saw Next Generation, and really all it was I was like, cool, aliens, sci-fi, guns, spaceships, cool. That's what I liked about it. Now, after I started watching a little bit more, and now that I look back on it, I think the bottom line with Star Trek, what it really is just as simple as a hopeful vision of the future. And the good thing about that, and why I feel confident saying that, is I feel like if you got 100 people from 100 different walks of life, from different political parties, different countries, different races, different everything, and you showed them Star Trek, I think 100 out of that 100 would agree that it is a hopeful vision of the future. None of them would say, that's a shit version of the future. And what that tells me is that, something I've kind of thought in the past is that we all pretty much, regardless of who we are, we all pretty much agree on what we want as a society. We just disagree on how to get there. We disagree on what we think is the best method to achieve that. But we all pretty much, bottom line, agree on what we want and where we hope civilization is heading. And so that's what's good about Star Trek, is that we're seeing it. We're not seeing how we're going to get there, but we're seeing something which is, hey, civilization, humanity is going to be okay. We're going to be all right. We're all going to love each other. It's all going to work out. It's all going to be great. And by the way, there's some really cool stories and themes within each episode. But the underlying theme of the entire show is that. And I think maybe that kind of ties into the gatekeeping, which is why Jarrod asked the question, which is Discovery seems to be less of a hopeful vision of the future than the other iterations of Star Trek, which is why a lot of the people are saying it just doesn't feel like Star Trek. And maybe they're not expressing themselves very well when they say that. But I think what they mean is it's dark, it's negative, but not dark in a way that Deep Space Nine was, because that was still great. That's the best written series, I think. I think what they mean is the overall feeling isn't hopeful, isn't positive, isn't happy. It's more like Game of Thrones. You know, it's a different voice than the previous Star Treks, and that doesn't make it right or wrong. But I think that's why they're saying. I think that's the biggest rub against it for, you know, the old school fans.
You know, as you were talking about when you watched TNG the first time and what your thoughts were from it and then how that changed over time, I was just thinking how my experience was when I was a kid, I watched the original series. The only time I watched that was with my father. And it was one of the few things that I did with my dad. He was a workaholic and I had to go visit him. I had divorced parents and I had to go visit him on the weekends. And I remember how much he loved sci-fi, technology. And I hope I don't get emotional when I say this. I wish he was alive today to hear his opinion on him watching the original series and being a fan, because he passed away when I was 15. He watched that with me, and at that time, I remember as a kid, I loved the philosophical questions that the original series brought up. That it brought to me going, ooh, that was interesting. I didn't think about that. Now, maybe I was just a little bit more aware as a kid. I don't know, but that's what attracted me to Star Trek, and the fact that it was a sci-fi show on TV and that I was sharing it with my father. Now, he passes away, and I remember he was a huge Star Wars fan too. He liked both. He liked both. Yeah, that was a side joke, but he was, and he had all these mugs of Stormtrooper, Darth Vader, up on the wall, and I'm a Star Wars fan as well, and then I don't watch TNG. I didn't get interested in the Next Generation. Then I auditioned, get on the show, and now my own experience on the show, and then meeting all the fans throughout the years that allowed me to work because they watched our show, and getting that input was what influenced me to what Star Trek is. That's pretty amazing in my point, to really start with something, but have actually the experience of being in it and the experience and love of the fans teach me about I always mess up togetherness, inclusivity, but I don't think I said that right.
No, you did.
Okay, good. Whew. That taught me that. So in a sense, I learned more about it in a roundabout way. You know what I mean? It's what the fans gave me and taught me what this world is truly all about. I don't know. I just think that's kind of an great, incredible thing I just thought of as we had this discussion. It's kind of fascinating. And Cirroc, I'm assuming your introduction to Star Trek 2 was our show.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I had watched a little bit of Next Generation, couple of episodes here and there because my neighbor was a fan of the show. Cool. And I grew up watching Twilight Zone, and so I really was a fan of good writing, you know, Rod Serling and just the stories that they told on that show. Also did Alfred Hitchcock Presents a lot. So I was kind of into these kind of mystery, and so science fiction wasn't too far away from that. It was just a little bit of a twitch or a little bit of a tinge to go over to science fiction, even though Twilight Zone kind of dealt with it with UFOs and little aliens coming to planets and stuff. So
Twilight Zone dealt with a lot of issues.
They did.
Of questions, yeah.
They did, and so I came off of that background, and I wasn't able to get the cerebral part of Star Trek until I grew up and became more mature, because it is an intellectual show, and it requires somebody to be literate and capable of comprehension and putting together different ideas. So in order to follow it properly. So, you know, early on as a kid, I really just looked at it with a different lens. It had a different kind of, you know, I wasn't able to grasp it, but I liked the quality of the action scenes in space, which is what attracted me as a kid, but less storyline. But now as an adult, what really impresses me about Star Trek is the fans. You know, the show itself is great, but it's the way the fans receive it to me that make it even greater.
Yes, I agree.
And so my experience going to conventions and meeting people around the world and hearing how they've been affected by, touched by, or relate to the show, is I cherish that more than I cherish my experience on the show. I only cherish the experience on the show because it touched those people and reached those many people. So it's kind of, you know, the show, the value of it is the fans, the people that have received it, the people that have supported it, the people that continue to support it and have debates about what is real and what is not, and keep the fervor and the energy of the passion of what it's about in the lexicon of discussion. So I think the fans have been the biggest support system for me, and they've carried the show. They will continue to carry the show, and how they respond and receive the show really determines the way in which it should be written.
And
now, go ahead, Aaron.
I just want to ask Cirroc a question on that, because it relates to both of us and our experience on the show. I know for me, well, let me ask you the question. Did you ever feel any time throughout the 7 years that we were working on the show, it would have such a positive impact on so many people? Even when I was doing It's Only a Paper Moon, at that time, and even after, I never thought that my performance on the show and Nog's journey, because they gave me a lot, right? And if I look even at season 7 and look back and go, wow, that was incredible, I still never thought how much it would positively impact people, both taking them into a place to give them some reprieve from life and go, that was so much fun, inspiring to go, wow, if a Ferengi, an illiterate Ferengi, can learn to read and excel and reach the highest peak, fuck, I can do it too. Or Paper Moon, if he can be in the same place I'm in and find a way out to be part of this world, I can do it too. And we all need those things. When I was younger and I was on dialysis, music and books were my way to get forward. And these are important parts of our lives. I never once, in those 7 years, thought what kind of impact we would have.
Nor did I. And the thing I did at the time was I lived in the moment, and I lived from episode to episode and from scenes to scenes. And so whatever scenes we were working on, I did understand that it was important to get it right and important to do my best around the other guys that I felt were qualified and experts at what they did. So I understood the significance of performing well for my peers on the set.
Right.
But I didn't understand the significance of performing well so that the audience would then believe and be affected so deeply. I didn't understand how that transcended.
Maybe it's better we didn't think that.
It is better because it was a momentary thing. It was
absolutely.
It was from episode to episode. I never approached it from an arc, saying, okay, well, where did I start in the beginning, and now where am I now, and where should I be going? I was looking at it like, this is what we're going through right now. I have to survive this moment. I have to get this scene done. This is what
professionalism.
Yeah, but it was always about what was the scene at hand and what was going on at the moment. I didn't really come to work every day saying, okay, in season 1 I started out being the guy who did this, and now I want to push myself to be the guy who's doing this now. The writers did a great job of doing all that work for us, so we only had to focus on the moment of the scene and getting that right in the production of each episode. But in hindsight, and which is the beauty of the show, in hindsight, you get to see how it impacts and affected people. In hindsight, you get to see a family. And I think Star Trek is a family.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a large family where you have the hierarchy of Captain Kirk and Gene Roddenberry at the top, and we're all kind of finding our places in this family. With our grandfathers, are all having a same grandfather in common, or all having a same great grandfather in common, and we're all kind of related in this kind of way where we're all cousins and arguing over what's real Star Trek, or what did our grandfather really mean when he was saying these things.
And there's always a crazy uncle. But I think that
Enterprise
family
of it is what makes it so amazing. It's actually creates a family.
That's a great word, family.
Mm-hmm.
Family. That's it right there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that a lot.
That's it.
We're going to go to a break in a minute here. Before we go, since we promised at the last one that we would talk about the future of gatekeeping, I want a one-word answer from all of you because we got 20 seconds. The question is, 5 years from now, will gatekeeping be better or worse? Jarrod?
It'll be the same.
Cirroc?
I think that it will mature and become a little bit more polite.
Cool. Aron?
I can't predict the future. I can say what I hope.
Well, we know what you hope. What do you think? Look into your crystal ball.
Yeah, where's my magic 8? That's what we need. Always on the show, a magic 8 ball.
The gate ball.
I struggle with questions like that because if I have to say something, I'm going to agree with Jarrod and say I think it'll be the same. I would like it to be better, and maybe the fact that many more shows come out, it makes it harder for one person to claim to be how did you word it earlier? The
authority.
The authority.
The authority. It'll be much more difficult as Star Trek continues to grow.
Well, and let's be honest, that generation is starting to die off. That had TOS as their first.
Hey, you guys are dying over there.
Let's be honest.
Sorry, we just got to wait them out then. Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit better. Like with everything else, there's that pendulum effect. I think at some point within the next 5 years, that bubble's going to burst, and there's going to be a pushback, and we're going to say, dude, we're just not. If you're going to be a dick, we're not going to give you attention.
I don't think it's like better or worse now than it was like 20 years ago. I just think it's more visible now with social media.
That's right. All right, so we're going to talk about Discovery next. So if you don't want any spoilers for Discovery, or if you're a gatekeeper that doesn't like Discovery, then just come back at the end and we'll see you there. Otherwise, everybody else, stay tuned on the 7th rule. Where are you going, Cirroc?
Okay.
Welcome back to Star Trek Discovery. Now, welcome back to the 7th rule with your gatekeeper, Cirroc Lofton.
That's the 7th rule, guys.
And the star, Aron Eisenberg. We also have super producer Jarrod Cooper. My name is Ryan T. Husk. We're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery, episode 12. I forgot what it's called, but it's episode 12. Jarrod knows.
The Valley of the Shadow.
The Valley of the Shadow.
I think it's Shadows.
Oh.
So let's talk about it. Cirroc, what were your first impressions about that?
Well, my first I'd like to actually go back before that.
He got something to say.
I've got something to say. Because we didn't get a chance to cover
the previous episode.
The previous episode, which is Michael's mom, and I wanted to give a special shout out to the woman who plays Michael's mom.
Mm-hmm.
I like her as an actress. I think she gave some strong performances.
Have you seen her in anything before?
She was on The Wire before. Yeah, she played on The Wire.
Oh, that show was so good. I don't think she was in The Shield with Michael Chiklis.
No, she was not in The Shield. She was in The Wire with Idris Elba and Wood Harris. But yeah, actually,
so good. That show was
amazing.
We could
do a whole show on The Wire.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
it was an amazing show. But I just thought that she should get a little special shout out for her performance. I think she really is good on screen. I like her emotions, and I think she was good.
And she was a believable mom for Michael.
She's a believable mom for Michael. Yeah, and I thought she had strong performance, and I think she should just get a little bit of credit since we didn't get a chance to talk about last week's episode. Yeah.
Shout out to Michael's mom.
Yes, I don't know the actress's name, but I
was hoping I did, but I don't.
Sonia Sohn.
Great. Shout out to her.
Yeah, Sonia Sohn. She was in Luke Cage too.
Oh, cool.
Right. I like Luke Cage. I don't like that Netflix shut down all their Marvel shows.
Total Wipeout, yeah.
Total Wipeout. I have a feeling it has to do with
it's 100% Disney.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it has to do with different properties. Anyway.
Ooh, that mouse.
Continue, Cirroc, about your critique of the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, so
I agree.
That's great. We shut down the gatekeeper. And that's how we should shut down the gatekeeper. Low Wi-Fi. So they just...
It can cut in and out.
And I'm back.
And I'm back. It's my Al Roker impression. That's all I got.
Hey!
Hey!
All right. Continue on after. So, Michael's mom, you were really a big fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of her performance. Where do I start? No, I'll let you guys go, and I'll chime in here and there. I don't really...
My one question from that episode about Michael's mom, where the hell did Admiral Cornwell go?
Well, where did she go in those recent episodes?
Well, she's obviously like off counseling somebody somewhere.
But who needs counseling at a time?
Apparently Tilly, because Tilly wasn't there either.
Yeah.
Good point.
Maybe she was giving her lessons on how to properly address captains and admirals and make sure she knocks before she enters situation rooms.
Oh, here we go again.
That bugs me. And obviously we saw Jet make a return in this recent episode, but so it's almost like a revolving door. Jet comes in, but Tilly and Jane Brooke go out.
Well, there are only so many storylines they can do, so maybe they're just trying to say not overwhelm people too much and scatter too much because they're already kind of bordering on that. So they're trying to say, okay, we can't have 50 cooks in each episode.
Well,
you know,
and that's fair. You're right, and you can't. You can only write so much into an episode. But if you're at a point in the show, right, we're winding down. We're coming to the climax of the series of this season. We're at a very big important point, where, the captain leaves to go get time crystals. I would think the next highest rank would take over. It would still make sense to go, well, we need her here. Now, maybe Jane couldn't make it on that episode. She was out of town or she was already scheduled for something else. No, maybe there was a technical reason, real life, that prevented her from being on the show. But if I had one big critique of this episode was the fact that she wasn't on the most recent one, the Shadows, because that would be where it would make most sense. He leaves, okay, I'm on charge. I'm in charge here on Discovery, and I'm on the bridge. More than if Saru takes over because she's highest ranked next. For her to just disappear, it doesn't have to be an extra storyline.
But I don't think we saw Giorgio either. I think it's just that, they just can't juggle them all.
Yeah, they can't.
Yeah, but they did mention that she was off trying to get she was after Leland.
At least they told us. Yeah,
sense.
You're right.
That one makes sense, right?
So I want to jump in and say that there was a moment that did, not to go back to the old discussion from before, but there was a moment that felt the most Star Trek to me. It felt Star Trek more than any moment in the last 2 weeks. And that was when Jet was talking with Culber. Now, obviously, it's different in that, it's a gay man talking about his gay husband and a gay woman talking about her gay, so that's different. The details are different, and that's not something that they really covered in Star Trek before. But the theme was, if it's been done a million times in Star Trek, where somebody comes in and it's all really a metaphor. She comes in with this hangnail, which isn't really, it's all subtext. That's what I mean. It's all subtext. You know, she's coming in, we're talking about a thumbnail or a hangnail, but she's really coming in saying, hey, dude, you know, what gives? What's going on here? You know, like it's a lot easier to approach a subject when you don't hit the subject head on, but you kind of dance around it. And everybody understood what the subtext was. Everybody understood that she wasn't really coming in for a hangnail. She wasn't really, you know, coming in talking about what, you know, the outside stuff. She's having a heart to heart, you know, because we're all just humans going out with other humans, you know, whether they're gay or straight or aliens or humans, it's
all humanity
and types. And that scene felt very Star Trek, because that you could absolutely picture Guinan coming in and talking to Deanna Troi about that, or you could picture, you know, Jadzia Dax coming in and talking to Jake Sisko about that, or something. You know, you could picture that same kind of conversation with fill-in-the-blank character, and I just really liked that scene. I thought it was great. Plus, I like both actors. I like both characters. It was a good scene. It felt really Star Trek to me.
You know, on that scene, what I liked was previously when she was on, and there was this conflict with her and Stamets, right? There was always this combative nature between the two. And here she was showing a little bit of warmth and compassion and care for his well-being.
Sure.
To take that initiative to talk to Culber and say, hey, you know, you're missing out here on something. You know, connect, heal it before it's too late. Because we all know how quickly life, you know, vanishes. So,
and on I love
that in of itself, it built the relationship between her and Stamets.
Totally.
That's what I like. I thought that was pretty neat there in that scene.
And I was just going to say that even on the most pessimistic and roughest side of things, at the very least, she as a pragmatist is like, hey, dude, we got to get our work done. And I can't get my work done if this guy is being tortured by this guy. So let me duct tape these two together and figure this out. You know, but obviously she brought in the humanity and the warmth in there. I just thought it was great. Any thoughts on the show, Cirroc?
Yeah, I have thoughts on the science part behind a lot of the concepts that just seem like really awkward to me. Like it feels like they're just really abstract. Some of the like artificial intelligence in the sphere, getting trapped in time. Yeah, I have problems with that. I just feel like.
Can you say that again? Because we kind of lost you in the connection there.
Yeah, but you're back now.
So just say what you said.
Okay, yeah.
He just said
I have problems. I have problems with some of the science behind it. It felt like that if like going back with Michael's mom exactly. If she had the Red Angel suit to time travel, but she actually never went back to the time when she's supposed to save Michael, but she was also going around saving all these other things. I just felt like I didn't get the science and the logic behind some of the stuff they were talking about. The artificial intelligence wanting the main drive, download the computer, like all of that stuff to me, I didn't get. And it didn't seem like it was thought out enough for me. And there's too many holes in the just the logic of things.
It's been happening sometimes, yeah. Jarrod, what do you think of the whole Pike scene? And I know Aaron's got thoughts on this too.
Yeah, I'm waiting. Yeah,
you're chomping at the bit. Like, that's the elephant in the room. That's the elephant in the room.
The Pike time crystal hallucination, choose your future scene. I don't get it. Okay. Well, just from a okay, you've got these crystals. If you take the crystal, this is what's going to be your future. If you leave it there, you can walk away from that future. And I'm like, it reminded me some of the orbs, the orb premonitions on Deep Space Nine. I'm like, okay, you're showing me this future. It could or could not be real. We as fans know that it's real. We know that he got burned on the ship. There wasn't enough detail to me for that. And it was just showing him his future. Okay. At that point, the character didn't know if it was real or not.
Aaron, tell him why he's wrong.
Okay.
Oh, know. Actually, I wouldn't go that far. I can see why he feels that way. Because it is a little bit, I mean, if they're going to say in another episode that they found a time crystal on the black market and stole it,
Right.
then why does Pike have to go through this drama to get a time crystal? I would think he would go to, and I can't pronounce his name, played by the wonderful Kenneth Mitchell.
On the black market.
No.
Why didn't they just go back to the black market and find another time crystal? Then he doesn't have to see his future and make this big decision. But
his name starts with TRA. He said it once.
yeah,
Ryan, Kenneth Mitchell was the son this past.
yeah. Did you guys know that? Kenneth, we
No.
need to get Kenneth Mitchell on our show, by the way.
He played the
I
son
love
too.
Kenneth.
He played
I didn't know
the grown-up son that took him into
Yeah.
the chamber. That was Kenneth Mitchell.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
That's really cool. And so that was the albino's son that just kind of grew up out of
That
nowhere
was-
because he was snorting time crystals, right?
Yeah, that was Vok and Laurel's son.
Now, to
That's
answer what you were asking me, Ryan, why I'm okay with it, even though the reason why I really liked it, and here's why. I get it. It is, again, they set up things to kind of connect the canon of Star Trek from the past to the future and then to the present. And that's kind of what this was, as they even said it to us, was about. And I like that they're very transparent in that. Okay, we know that we have fans that want this connected. We've got to hold true to that. How can we connect what's going on, with that and make it work? And then keep it within the vein of Star Trek and the ideology of that, of what Pike said when after he saw it and he goes back and he says, I'm here for the greater good, and I'll make this sacrifice that only he will know of, as well as I need to know that character's name. It's so hard to remember. Look it up for me, Jarrod, if you will, while I say this. So I liked that he had that dilemma, and we showed that, and he connected to that, because it adds to, which I know Cirroc doesn't like a lot that we've discussed on this show, it adds to his journey from the original series of that, and it changes it without changing the result, but it adds subtext to Pike's character in TOS that he knew this was going to come, but he still acts heroically in the past as well as the present by learning about the future, and he's okay with that because the ultimatum is everyone dies. So what's the point of, even if he said, no, I can't do that, then well, now where we're all now, we either find another way to stop the AI or we're all going to perish. And he takes that upon himself to do that. And I liked it because it kept the truth of his character, Pike. And I thought it was great how the writers connected all that together and made it seem plausible within its own story and its own structure of discovery. I could buy into that. And I think that's why I liked it so much, because I thought they thought of a very clever way to connect everything. And they even said so much, and I probably won't quote this correctly, so maybe Jarrod can, when the past and the future connect, it brings us to the present. And in a way, that's the subtext of talking to the fans. We're connecting it all. We're connecting the dots.
Metaphor,
and I really love that they did it. It's very transparent. It's Discovery, the writers, producers saying, look, we get it. We know that a lot of this is different from what you all love and know, but we're here to work to connect some of the dots. And we love this world. And I know Erica and Bowie love this world, and they're huge fans of DS9. And you can see those elements in this. And I thought it was great. And to be honest, what I really loved this, which I've complained about in some of the other episodes, too many storylines that don't really connect, that just keeps taking me out. And I thought this one was fantastic at them all flowing together. And I loved the relationship with Cirroc with Spock and Burnham going together and working together, and bringing more information to the story, which didn't detract from the main story of Pike. and I'm a huge Pike fan. I think Anson Mount is fantastic. I mean, to take an iconic figure like Pike and breathe life into him and connect everything and take us on that journey, I think he's done a fabulous job. So.
You know, I think you made a very important point there. A really important point was that meta line where they say, you know, the past and the future come together. You have the present. I think you're right. I think that was deliberately a line as kind of a nod to the fans. That's a good point. I hadn't noticed that. And I think that the reason the writers added that part for Pike is because we need that character depth for a really important character like he is. And he already has that pre-existing character, you know, plot line of, you know, him blowing up and getting his face all messed up.
All in our head.
So that's already been established. So them showing us that isn't going to do anything for the character. That's already existing in the character's storyline. So they had to add a secondary thing to give it more depth. And I think this was a great way to do that because we already know this is going to happen to him. So doing that to him isn't going to do anything.
The only question I have is if he knows that this is going to happen to him, like if you know you're going to get blown up on that ship, how would that affect your behavior moving forward in circumstances that don't see you standing in an engine room on a starship?
Well, as Picard has said in a couple episodes, you know, he says, no, we can't keep second-guessing ourselves.
Right.
Because for all we know, second-guessing ourselves and doing something different might be what leads to this. So we have to just go about our lives the way we've been trained to go about our lives. And that's kind of what Pike was saying.
That's almost like the second episode of the new Twilight Zone, in a way.
Which I haven't seen yet, so don't ruin it for me.
Cirroc is watching that, and we can do an extras feature for the patrons to talk about Twilight Zone.
No, let's watch it. It's on CBS All Access.
It's on CBS All Access.
Yeah,
I heard.
Okay, now something that I thought of when you were talking, Ryan, is adding more depth to a story we already know. To me, is almost exactly reminiscent of Little Green Men. Little Green Men took information that we're already aware of, and they added more story to connect it. That you go, oh, that's so clever. It's the Ferengi that are on Roswell, you know. And now we know we got more information on how, you know, Pike gets there. And you know what was really cool when he came down to Boreth? Did it not look like Lord of the Rings? You know, I was thinking I would see Gimli pop out and go, whoops, wrong set.
And my axe. By the way, Jarrod tells us it's Timekeeper Tenavik.
Yep.
Say it again.
Timekeeper Tenavik.
So the Klingons now have an entire cult that's like timekeepers. Just, I don't get that. Of every.
Rock, would you like to explain it to him?
No.
I mean, you want to talk about the least qualified people for the job.
But you could argue that at some point between now and, let's say, TNG, they're taken out by another sect of the Klingons. But then if they're timekeepers, they would have seen that coming. And then they could have gone back. Yeah, but you know what? I mean, again, you can't pigeonhole writers to not add anything just because it was never given before.
Well, it's not that. It's just like the only thing I think I would trust less with time manipulation technology is the Ferengi.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want the Ferengi looking after it. I wouldn't want the Klingons looking. Romulans, maybe. Vulcan.
Yeah, but anybody could be corrupted by having the power of time. Anybody could be corrupted by that, you know, except Cirroc maybe. Cirroc wouldn't be corrupted by that, but I would definitely, you know. But I don't know. I guess we talk about, you know, Ryan and I talk about this. At some point, you have to accept the things they give and go, okay, that's what it is. And In Search of Cirroc is back, ladies and gentlemen. Cirroc has disappeared.
He turned into a pumpkin at a certain point.
The time crystal got him.
Wi-Fi for him. But I thought that too. I have to admit, but I really thought it was really cool. I loved where they were located. You know, I liked going through the tunnels, and I'm okay allowing myself to believe that there are a group of Klingons whose purpose is solely to do this, and they abide by that. And especially if you have the combination of human and Klingon coming together for a child that then is now the gatekeeper, or well, not the gatekeeper, poor choice of words.
The key master.
But the time master, did he have a designated name, Jarrod?
Tenevik.
What?
Tenevik.
No, not his
Timekeeper
name, but
Tenevik.
Timekeeper Tenevik.
Timekeeper.
Yeah.
You know, you have a human and Klingon balance who's now in charge, adds a nice little element to it. And then lastly, did you guys not feel towards the end of Discovery how much it felt like Deep Space Nine in the war, the Dominion War? I mean,
I did like that they brought that in, and that was a very Star Trek past element. You know, it did feel kind of like we have engaged the Dominion, or you know, the Borg battles of
right.
Commander. You know, it had that moment where it's just like, okay, this is it. You know, it's all building up, and here we go. Tune in next week, you guys.
And they sold me hook, line, and sinker, because I was like, oh, that was great. I can't wait, and especially the final shot on Anson Mount, you know, on Pike. And I thought, it just says comp. So that was, I thought, that's, is that Cirroc? Is he back?
Cirroc's back, yeah.
Oh. And I love that ending. I can't wait to see Thursday's episode. We should have a viewing party for Thursday's episode.
Let's do it.
Cirroc,
well, we've only got 2 left.
What?
Yeah,
you only got 2 episodes left.
And are we going to talk about Deep Space Nine after that? Start watching Deep Space Nine shows?
We can.
Sure.
We can.
Dude, I think that would be awesome.
Game of Thrones, Deep Space Nine,
Twilight Zone,
Enterprise. Everybody loves Enterprise, right? It's been a long road.
Let's do it.
Cirroc, what are your thoughts on this recent episode?
Game of Thrones.
Cirroc Lofton, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank
Good
you.
job, Cirroc.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, just we're going to close out in a minute, but do you have any final thoughts that you didn't get to about this?
No, not really. I was listening to a lot of what you were saying. I thought that the past, present, future kind of line really segued well into what we were saying earlier on the show, which is just about, you know, the differences between the perspective of the fans and how they look at it. So I think that the writers are doing a tremendous job for what they've picked to do as their assignment. So they've chosen to tell a story that we already kind of know the end of in some ways and aspects. They've chosen to tell stories where they're going to tie in things that we already know in the canon. So they've chosen that path, and I think they're doing a good job in that path. But there's certain things that I feel like they are restricted by, and I've already mentioned this. They're restricted by because they have to kind of tell the story that we know where it's going to end.
Right.
But having said that, they're doing a good job tying in all of these kind of past references, and you know, I just can't wait to see what they'll tie in from Deep Space Nine on this show, because I'm pretty sure there will be a Deep Space Nine tie-in. And so that's my foreshadowing.
Is that your prediction, my friend?
That's my prediction. Yeah.
He snorted some time crystals too.
I had time crystals during my break, and I think that they will find a way to tie in some DS9 history into this show as well.
So next,
what do you think, Phil Collins? Are they going to do that?
Well, I'm sitting here looking at next week because we're going back to Zahea from Runaway. The short trek Runaway. We're going back to that planet, and that same girl is in next week's episode. So
whose was that?
Yeah,
that was the Tilly. That was the Tilly
one.
The Tilly one.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here.
Short trek.
Yeah, they're going.
That short trek.
Because they're
tying in all of those short treks. They are.
And her planet, their big thing was dilithium crystals that they could do. You know, that was what their major export was. So I'm sitting here. I was like, because CBS just sent out the preview for next week, and I'm like, oh, that's great. But now I'm wondering if that Tilly short track actually is taking place right now.
And that's where she is.
And that's where she is.
Wow, look at Jarrod. Wow, look at this.
And I'm like, I'm wondering, because
Jared's a bigger fan of this show than he's really telling us. He knows a lot.
Mm-hmm. He has Discovery bed sheets. I saw them. Not in person.
Those aren't Discovery bed sheets. They are Deep Space Nine Defiant bed sheets. Thank you very much.
Oh, put your head down,
do you still have
ladies and
the underwear that we got from one of the seasons where the Defiant's coming out of the booty?
No, because those were yours. I'd rather not.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that, Aaron.
I'm gonna find them and I'm gonna bring them on the show and show
you. Don't have to. I'm all right. I don't need them.
Oh, I got an extra pair for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So anyway, I guess that's about it for this week, guys. But thank you all so much for joining us.
Aaron, put your head down, please.
He looks like remember the Egyptian magician from the Jerky Boys? That's kind of what he meant.
Egyptian magician. I remember the Jerky Boys. Pablo, honey. Pablo.
Yeah, that's right. You were talking about Pablo.
Pablo, honey, are you gonna come home?
All right.
I think Cirroc and I should start crank calling people together.
Start.
Oh, yeah. That would start. That would be good.
Let's start with Jarrod. So anyway, thanks to everybody for joining us. If you'd like to be a sponsor of the show, please just contact us. We're easy to find. You can find us on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or wherever you like. Just Google us. Also, leave a bunch of comments below. Keep the conversation going. The show doesn't work without you guys. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your questions. Let us know how much you disagree with us. And share us with your friends, especially, and tell them why you like us so much or hate us so much. But anyway, for super producer Jarrod Cooper, for Aron Eisenberg, for Cirroc Jake Lofton. That's tough to remember.
Jake Sisko Lofton.
I'm Ryan T. Husk. Always remember the 7th rule.
Keep your ears open.